Hey everybody, welcome back to The Outer Rim. We are here today to discuss The Mandalorian Season 2. So, welcome everybody. I'm Eric. I am joined today by, I almost said tonight. We're so used to doing this at night, and here we are, Halloween morning. I'm barely awake. I'm going to mess this up so bad, which is perfect timing, of course, because we're talking about The Mandalorian Season 2 finally premiering. We've been waiting a year for this, and I'm going to flub it all up. But that's okay, because I've got these guys here to blame. I've got Tim, Lou, and Tom. Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I'm really excited to talk about The Mandalorian, about this first episode of the season. It's awesome. So
it is.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And Lou, how are you doing?
I am doing great. Like Tim, I am excited too. I mean, we've been waiting a long time to get this episode out, and it did not disappoint.
All right. And then I saved the best for last because I'm hoping that this will be the guy that'll correct all my mistakes. Tom, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm waiting for you to mess up so that I can volunteer you to be the next guy that wakes up the Crate Dragon.
It won't take long.
Because it looks like that has about a 10% survival
You
rate.
know,
That poor bastard.
if I were there, that would have been me. Yeah, no doubt.
Eric, it looks like you drew the short straw again.
There wouldn't have even been straws drawn. Everybody would have just looked over and said, Eric? We're all good on that, right? We don't need to vote?
I'm not sure it would be again, because the first time you draw the short straw, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd at least make you feel good about it. They're like, you do the Tusken Raider sound better than any of us. Like you are loud. You do it crisply.
Well, thank you.
We need you.
Thank you.
Well, you know, see, that's where during we're all going. See, I can't.
Yeah,
Yeah, see, I can't.
Down there and do it again.
It's too early in the morning for that. And I think we just lost both of our viewers. So, wow. That's okay. So
We also lost Tim.
we did.
No. I'm back.
Oh, there we go.
Recall that it is in fact Halloween. So
Oh.
did everyone else bring their?
So here's the funny thing, because you're not doing like a proper green screen thing, you're doing the Skypey, I'm going to try to pretend I know how to green screen. It's cutting out the Mickey Mouse ears. So it looks like you just have an R2-D2 beanie on your head.
Yeah.
You just equipped your astromech.
Which is both adorable and like the ultimate in nerdy, like don't ever do that sort of fashion.
Eric just called me adorable. I'm not sure what I think about that.
I could just call you
You're
Adore.
soft on Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
He's just trying to get back in your good graces so we don't march him in front of the
Crate Dragon. Yeah, Crate Dragon fodder right here. All right, so
Happy Halloween, everybody.
yes, happy Halloween. Though we don't
Yes, happy
discuss the
Halloween.
dates we record because people could be watching this at any time, Tim, and we don't want to like date it and say, oh wow, way back in Halloween. How old is this video? And then they duck out. So
This is Halloween of 20.
Damn it.
don't say the year. Don't say the year. You'll just jinx
No,
the
I
whole
said
show.
20.
Okay, there we go. The year that doesn't count. But we finally have the Mandalorian back. Welcome to the Outer Rim, by the way. You guys might have missed the fact that we're back now. We are going to be kind of consolidating what used to be the Outer Rim and Knights of the Holotable in the sense that we are going to, at least for now, and we might diverge and do additional Star Wars shows in the future, but for now we are going to use this both for long-form Star Wars discussions and for covering the different Star Wars content that comes to Disney Plus, in this case, The Mandalorian. And so I want to give the new people out there a little bit of a welcome because this is new to YouTube, and a lot of people will be discovering us for the first time through YouTube. And this will be your first foray into watching me try to podcast when I've just rolled out of bed, literally.
Hello, new people.
Yeah, sorry, everybody. So when we discuss anything from Disney Plus, in this case, The Mandalorian, and we'll also be discussing the Kenobi series and the Cassian Andor series, etc., when they come out, we don't just do recap shows. We find that recap shows are... Some people really like them, and that's great. And we're not trying to diss any other podcasters out there. And we fully support people who, like, that's their thing. It's not our thing, because I think we all kind of agree that we would rather just watch the show again than just tell you what happened in the show again. We know you'd rather just watch the show again, right? So what we're going to do instead is...
I find a regular recap to be tedious.
Yeah, we feel it's kind of pointless. So we're trying to bring something else to the table here. So what we do is we discuss and provide commentary for the show, an analysis, and kind of what we think about different scenes, what it means to the overall story arc, what it means to the characters, what it means to the greater Star Wars universe as a whole. And so that's what we're going to do today. Tom, we didn't really get to discuss any of season 1 with you before we jump into season 2, which is chapter 9, The Marshal. What are your general thoughts on season 1, just like in a nutshell? Any particular favorite moments, favorite episodes? I'm mainly doing this as an excuse so I can take another drink of my coffee here, but go ahead.
Is all of it an option?
Oh, no. So that's another thing we do here. Hold on. I want to say this too. We're not just some fanboy podcast, right? If there's something we don't like, we're going to be honest about it. And you can't tell me, Tom, that everything in season 1 was just incredibly awesome and worship at the altar of the very awesome Dave Filoni. Not trying to diss Filoni, but like there had to be something that didn't hold up to the other incredible moments from season 1, right? We can't just pretend it's all awesome. You have to have, there's got to be a pinnacle in there somewhere.
I think for me, if you know me and if you don't, you will quickly find out. I am like a Star Wars lore nerd to the max. And the idea that we were jumping into a period that we've never seen before on screen 5 years after the Battle of Endor had me really excited. And seeing whether it was the attack on the prison ship and the sneak peek into New Republic operations there and how they're struggling to operate in this vacuum that they suddenly created after blowing up the Death Star and Jakku, or particularly seeing Moff Gideon operating as effectively a warlord. I mean, we'll find out more, I guess, this season, and the sort of disparity between his troops and their connection to whatever's left of the Imperial remnant and the troops of the client. That was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
The operation of the Empire after its mighty fall there was just awesome. So seeing dirty stormtroopers, seeing stormtroopers and Imperials like on the defensive and kind of scrounging around and still doing evil things, that was really cool.
Yeah,
I love seeing that, and I want to see more.
I think for me the high point of season 1 was probably The Prisoner, the episode you mentioned about the prison ship. That I think that was my favorite episode, and probably my least favorite episode, though it was still really good, I really enjoyed it, was the one on Tatooine with Ming-Na Wen, who I love as an actress. That particular episode, it just kind of felt like it didn't get anywhere for me, which is ironic because now we're back on Tatooine and that kind of, we're starting to bring some of that back around full circle, I think. But before we get into season 2 here, any highlights for you, Tim, from season 1?
I'm just going to kind of say it's an overall that I appreciated the balance that they had in the first season of Easter eggs and throwbacks and references, not only to canonical stuff, but also weaving in little bits of like Legends material and that kind of stuff. It really showed that, you've got people like Filoni and Favreau and other creatives behind the camera who they know that stuff. They're aware of that stuff. And they obviously have a passion for that stuff, and they found ways to kind of integrate that stuff in.
Yeah.
So it made those things feel familiar for us. But also, the people who didn't know Legends or didn't even watch, say, Rebels, or the Clone Wars, where they would have been familiar with the Darksaber, they were still fine with it. They weren't missing out on anything.
Right.
It just, having been aware of those things, it was more of kind of a bonus for us.
Right.
And then there was also this balance on the other side of new things and new content and new worlds and new story and new characters and all that. So I absolutely loved it. And I think also they've really captured a lot of kind of the Marvel-esque thing that the MCU has done with this terrific balance between humor and action and drama. That's just really, really solid. I mean, there's some great humor in these episodes, even though, it's a darker tone and everything is the blanket that's thrown over it is really serious. But there's just some really outstandingly funny moments. And even in this first episode of season 2, there were a number of times when I just laughed out loud. I thought it was
I still
great.
love the speeder bike, the Scout Troopers at the beginning of episode 8. That was still great. Lou, before we move on, any quick thoughts on season 1? Any standout moments for you?
I liked the way the season wrapped up. I thought episode 8 was fantastic. The use of the 501st and the way they did that, and like you said, the speeder bike guys at the front were just. I thought that the mix of comedy in that was decent. The only thing I didn't care for in the whole season was the prison barge breakout.
Really?
I just
That's
thought
a
that
favorite episode for a lot of people.
Yeah, and for me, it was just took me out of the rest of the story. It was good because it gave us a lot of detail and content about the characters, and that's one thing I really liked about the season overall was that we got a mix of lore and story and Easter eggs and everything kind of all fit. So in terms of that, it was great. But that one episode for me was the one I just didn't care for the most.
Well, the quick tease. We are apparently going to be seeing a return of one of the characters from that episode. Allegedly. I won't say who. But
Trapper Wolf, X-Wing pilot extraordinaire.
yeah, I have no doubt we'll see him again. All right, we'll move on. Let's talk Chapter 9 or Season 2, Episode 1, a.k.a. The Marshal. So this was, I believe this one was directed by Jon Favreau, right?
Yes.
He's got the directing credit, I believe, for all but 2 or 3 of these episodes of the season 2 episodes. So
Really?
It's very different than season 1. Yep.
I didn't know he was doing that much of season 2. I know they're bringing back Bryce Dallas Howard, and they're bringing back. Are they bringing back Rick Fumiyawa?
Yeah, I think he's got 1, and I think Filoni has 1.
Filoni's doing the 5th episode.
Right.
Taika Waititi is doing 1, I thought.
Oh, is he
don't
really coming
know.
back?
I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that, everyone.
Yeah.
See, I knew Filoni and Bryce Dallas Howard were doing them. I didn't know that anyone else was, aside from Favreau.
I mean, that's good.
It's very Favreau heavy.
I'm all for Favreau doing more in this universe, but I'm trying to think if there was somebody else that hadn't done season 1 that they brought in, somebody like a known. I'm gonna have to look it up. We'll get the director list here for next episode. I didn't even think to hunt that down. I want to say like Robert Rodriguez or something. It's not him, but it's some kind of name that people would recognize that they were bringing in for an episode.
Yeah, I think I know exactly. I think it might be Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, I thought they were.
In fact, but
yeah, we'll look it up. Anyway, that's not important. The important thing is this episode, directed by Jon Favreau himself, who did not direct season 1 at all. I mean, he was obviously the showrunner, and did a lot of writing, and I think he wrote this episode too. So writer and director.
Yep.
Didn't Favreau direct the first episode of the first season?
I
thought he did.
Didn't think he did. I thought it was Filoni.
No, that's wildly relevant.
Yeah, we could go down that rabbit hole all day, though.
Collider had a story here saying that season 2 directors are Favreau, Filoni, Bryce Dallas Howard, Peyton Reed, Robert Rodriguez, and Carl Weathers.
I was right. Oh, Carl Weathers had one too.
Oh, Carl Weathers is directing one. That's cool.
I want to see Carl Weathers episodes so bad.
Yeah, I was right. Robert Rodriguez.
Peyton Reed is also a really good director.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to a good season. That's great news. Timothy Oliphant and John Leguizamo, the big guests for this episode. I didn't realize John Leguizamo was in it until I was watching the credits, actually.
Folks had assumed that it was Favreau doing the voice of Gor Koresh.
This is the guy at the ringside.
This is the guy at the ringside.
Yeah, the Abyss.
The Abyssin.
That's what I
Abyssinian.
thought because it sounded exactly like him.
Yeah, it did kind of have that kind of feel, but no, it was John Leguizamo. Yeah.
Now, where do people know him from?
John Leguizamo. He played
all
the
over
psycho clown in the really, really awful, horribly, unspeakably bad Spawn movie.
Oh, okay.
He's had so many credits. He's just
Oh yeah, he's been in
Everything.
everything.
probably
for a
one of the
long
most
time.
prolific folks.
That's the thing. Like, I can think of a billion things he's in. I'm just trying to think of like what would be the one or two things that people would recognize him
I don't know
from.
if anybody here. Moulin Rouge. He was in. If you remember the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet, that like really overly stylized version of the story. with
Leonardo DiCaprio and
guns
Claire
and
Danes.
stuff. Yeah.
Wasn't he a voice in Ice Age too?
Yeah.
Yes.
Number 2, but in the Ice Age movies, I can't remember what he played.
Squirrel,
but-
right?
Oh, was he? Was he the squirrel chasing the net? Yeah.
No. Was he?
I don't
He
know.
plays Sid. Yeah.
No, Sid is the
He was in
Sid the Sloth. I don't know. We're getting off track here, but point is, John Leguizamo plays. You had the character's name, Gor Koresh. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So the guy ringside, and with that, let's just go ahead and jump into the story here. So we're going to go through kind of segment by segment, and you guys give me what you liked, what you didn't like about it, how it relates to bigger parts of the story and everything. I kind of feel like this episode, for me, like it added a little bit to the world building, obviously, especially for Tatooine. It gave us something we hadn't seen before, and it moved things ahead, but it didn't really do as much for the overall story arc as I thought it was going to. Honestly, I thought we were going to get some Moff Gideon backstory or context, at least for him, in this. I know Giancarlo Esposito has been a big part of the marketing. Last week, he had a segment on, was it a commercial on Monday Night Football or something? I don't know. I don't really watch sports, where he was kind of narrating an explanation of the Darksaber and the history of it, with clips from Clone Wars and Rebels and all that. And I thought, oh, they're really going to hit the ground running with kind of a Moff Gideon sort of focused episode. And he wasn't even in the episode at all. And the child, Lou, you keep talking a lot about how the show's called The Mandalorian. It's supposed to be about the Mandalorian. It's not, the babysitter. It's not the Mandalorian and the child. We really didn't get much of the child in this at all.
No, this one was about the Mandalorian, which I thought was fantastic. Yeah.
Did any of
and they
you
had
guys?
I was going to say they had enough little spots of, cute child peeking around things or coming up out of the little urn. Yeah. So that made it. I mean, my wife cooed every time she saw him.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like,
he wasn't a big distraction for the story.
But for all the people talk about fan service and how horrible and distracting it is in shows like this, they threw in at least enough so that our spouses and girlfriends and stuff like that'll like this show. So that sounds sexist because there are a lot of women who are legitimately fans of the show, but I know there are a lot of people who they watch it and their spouse isn't really all that interested in it, but everybody loves Baby Yoda. Or my son, who likes the Mandalorian stuff, but like really, like he wants his own Baby Yoda walking around the house with him, right? So you have to insert that in to kind of keep people like, oh, there he is, doing that thing all through the episode.
Yeah, this was great. Yeah.
I see, and I like those little things because it's a moment of levity, especially when he's making like little faces, like when he's in the saddlebag of the speeder and he's doing the thing like my dog does when he's leaning out the window with his ears flopping back. That's just hilarious.
His
stuff.
eyes are like 70% of his face, and it's a speeder bike going through a desert at full speed. His eyes are getting sandblasted.
There was no wind. No, see, there was protection there because Cobb's hair didn't move at all. And they were able to talk at a normal volume when they're riding along at like Mach 1.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, no.
No, they slowed down when they were going through the I didn't notice the hair as much as he's talking in a normal speaking voice like this, and the guy can still hear
Well, the hair
him.
moved enough to let you know there was some wind there, but I'm like, no. You see the rooster tail behind the bike, and I'm like, okay, they are flying. And his hair's like, a little bit there, a little bit there. I'm like, come on.
Hey, the guy knows how to
Really
style his
good
hair.
hairspray.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good
I mean, he takes that
I
helmet
like
off.
the
He doesn't have
episode
helmet
in the
head
sense
at all, right?
Right. Well, that was my other point too. I'm like, okay, so the one time he's not wearing it, it's like you're on a speeder bike. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
Well,
there's no helmet laws in Tatooine.
no, there aren't.
Did you guys, speaking of the child, when Mando first arrived at the mining settlement and he gets off the speeder and walks into the cantina there, did any of the rest of you be like, you left the baby? Where are you
rolled
going?
the windows down on the speeder.
So the thing is, though, that entire settlement, all of the buildings on that would fit inside the building where I work, and there'd still be enough room to like build a neighboring town.
True.
That place
this
was
like,
tiny.
Yeah, these were like Tatooine modular homes.
I live out in the middle of nowhere, and there's like a shopping center down the street that's as big as that entire town.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, there was one street. There were like 8 or 10 buildings and a bantha,
and that's it.
With part time.
And it's not like there are suburbs that we're not seeing.
No.
Yeah.
I did love that. This is the first that we've seen, the first new place on Tatooine that we've seen, since the prequels?
Yeah.
Because we didn't get any uncharted places in Clone Wars or Rebels, and certainly not in the sequel trilogy.
And season 1 was still Mos Eisley.
Yeah, so it's neat to see sort of the rest of the planet.
This is the other big place on Tatooine. See, we need a special edition where George can come in and make like a whole booming metropolis around these little, these 8 little houses.
Well, no,
But
it's
I like
supposed to
the
be a
fact-
forgotten
so-
city, or village.
Yeah.
We see, which I really appreciated, the effects, because we've seen, shots of Coruscant and other places and the effect that the Empire had. But here we see that there are ripple effects down to the most backwater of little places. And it's immediate. Right. And you think about Tatooine in particular, no central government. It's about as far from the bright center of the galaxy as you can get. And within days of each other, you had 2 huge events in the death of Jabba, who was arguably the only real structure that Tatooine had. Yep. And then the destruction of the Empire, and it sounds like they had a garrison of some size that was left there during the Civil War. And you have this power vacuum, and it's not just touching a place like Mos Eisley or Anchorhead or Mos Espa. It's rippling out to these little settlements, like these folks that are just trying to scrape by are immediately put under the boot heel of some powerful, other organization. In this case, a mining company. Right. That was fascinating to me, and you got a little peek of it because Cobb Vanth we all saw for the first time in the Aftermath trilogy, but it was just a little sneak peek. But I think I'm really glad that they took that focus, because it would have been too easy for him to hang around and get information in like familiar tread ground that we've seen on Tatooine several times at this point.
Yeah. Well, let's put a pin in that. Go ahead.
Can we talk for a quick moment about these mining collective guys?
Well, hold on, because we kind of skipped a whole section. I want to go back to the Fight Club thing real quick, and then we'll come back to it. And we need to get to that too. Did anybody catch the planet that the Fight Club thing happened on?
No.
Okay, I don't know that it was
named. There was
named.
some speculation based on like the graffiti and whatnot that was on the planet, that maybe this was Lothal and whatnot. I don't know. I don't know that we know where they were, and ultimately it seems like it's, this is a waypoint, not all that important.
But it's Star Wars, so the fans want to know exactly, what the street name was in whatever little village, they want the details. Right. And you mentioned the graffiti too. There's a lot of anti-imperial graffiti there that was kind of interesting.
There was some cool stuff. I've watched the episode twice. In my third watching, I actually intend to just do a continuous pause through that whole thing, because I actually want to look at the graffiti and see if there's any little Easter eggs in there, kind of funny things, because there was a lot. I mean, the walls were covered in it.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine that that it was more than just oh, here's a depiction of a stormtrooper with an X through it. There had to have been some really good stuff in there. So I want to take some time.
And it's interesting too that you had such it was like you said, it was just everywhere. It was covering things, and we keep seeing all of this anti-imperial these statements being made, whether it's the stormtroopers helmets on spikes or whether it's the graffiti. It's weird to see that in this period of Star Wars, because it's a kind of thing you couldn't get away with, and all of a sudden now you can, and it's it blankets everything everywhere.
Palpatine didn't tolerate defacement of public property.
Not so much. He kind of had an issue with that.
Yeah, one thing that jumped out at me, and I think is an indicator that we don't know what this planet is, the creatures that you see. You see the red eyes that are lurking back in the darkness. It seems like the lights that are illuminating their pathway are actual, they have a functional purpose and a defensive purpose, maybe as much as they do let me see where I'm going.
Right.
And we see that kind of playing out in Gor Koresh's fate at the end. It really brought to mind, if you remember in Rebels, when they go to the former Fort Anaxis to collect fuel, and they run into those creatures, the Fear Nox, the bat-looking type creatures that are really ferocious, and they kind of lurk back in the darkness. And the moment that another asteroid blots out the sun, they come out and they're really vicious. Right. I got those type of vibes from it.
Yeah, totally.
And it's interesting too, when we were watching the trailer, there was a lot of speculation online that based on an audio cue, that the guy who was hanging up from the street lamp was a Tusken Raider. And then everybody was thinking that was on Tatooine somewhere. And I never caught the audio cue or something. It didn't look like a Tusken Raider to me. And now we know it wasn't. But it was weird how often I kept seeing that when people were doing these trailer breakdowns and stuff. But anyway, the Fight Club, kind of a throwaway sort of thing. But if nothing else, it kind of helped establish the quest. If not the quest, because, we got the quest established in episode 8 in season 1. But specifically the first phase of the quest. And I'm sure the quest is going to go through different phases as we go through season 2. But we know that he wants to reunite the child with its kind. But the first phase of the quest, as he explains through exposition, is going to be to find other Mandalorians.
That was what was most significant to me about this entire scene. I think it gave us a great peek into what his arc in season 2 is going to be, because there was a lot of speculation about how is he going to achieve this? How in the world is he going to get information?
Right.
He's going to follow breadcrumbs, but how is he going to find the first breadcrumb? And if there are going to be other Mandalorians, how is he going to, what role will they play?
Right.
And now we know not only that he's planning to use other Mandalorians to get that information, but that there are other coverts out there.
Right. That's the thing.
And I think that's significant.
It's a seemingly kind of a throwaway, fun intro shot, kind of like the beginning of season 1. And yet, like you said, there's a lot of establishment there as far as what the arc is going to be, at least for the first phase of this season. And I think that on top of that, too, so first, rather than just randomly going from place to place and then coming upon different things and saying, oh, that could be useful in my quest, we see a very organized intention here. This is what I need to do. And so that allows for the introduction of a lot of stuff. And of course, we want to see more Mandalorians. We've got Cobb Vanth in this episode. We believe we're getting Boba Fett. We believe we're getting Sabine. If we get Sabine, we also are going to have possibly Ahsoka, which we are all expecting already. So this gives an excuse to get a lot of those cameos in that we're all clamoring for and do it in a way that matters to the story. Mm-hmm. Plus, it makes sense anyway because he doesn't have any leads on this Baby Yoda race, right? We don't know what the child belongs to. So we have to go somewhere else to get to that. We have to take a little side trip to figure out what path to actually take to the end goal. This makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot of establishment for the season in that one little segment and that exposition. So
the other fascinating thing, and I think it's a peek into what's to come, a little bit of foreshadowing. The Empire is not the only are not the only folks, and bounty hunter guild folks are not the only ones after Mandalorians.
Yeah.
The trade in Beskar has clearly survived whatever the collapsed Imperial demand is. And there are folks out there that are not bounty hunters that are after Mandalorians. Gor Koresh mentions, like, normally I have to draw you guys out.
Right.
And then, peel that off of your, peel the Beskar off of you. It's clearly still a precious metal that as Imperial credits have collapsed in value and the New Republic maybe doesn't have any kind of currency that is worth very much, that precious metal, sort of the gold standard, is still out there, and folks are, whether they're bounty hunters or not, are hunting and killing Mandalorians for it.
Yeah. And not only that, but Gor Koresh apparently has been successful multiple times at doing it. And I can't imagine Mandalorians are that easy to take down. So that says something about.
And so,
yeah,
I think it's a new foe potentially that we haven't seen. In terms of a threat to him as he goes through. Because if he's going to be going from covert to covert, there are going to be folks out there in the galaxy who are not Moff Gideon. They're going to be threats.
Yeah.
He's potentially going to be drawing danger into those coverts. As he's pursued.
And that implication, I think, is really important, right? Because it establishes that the Mandalorian is not just like wandering the galaxy all willy-nilly with nothing to worry about. Like, there are people, as you said, actively hunting Mandalorians, and that's not including Moff Gideon and whatever resources he has. And there was a statement back in the episode, The Prisoner, with the prison transport thing, where they're all on the Razor Crest as they're going to that prison ship. And one of the other characters says something about, the Mandalorians being the greatest warriors ever. And one of the other characters says, then why are they all dead?
Yeah.
So this does indicate that they are still being pursued and hunted. And yeah, they're powerful warriors, but you can still take them out. They're not, impossible to kill. They're not invulnerable.
Right. We haven't had that story for the fall of Mandalore really played out anywhere in terms of everything that happened. Now, I'm going to ask, well, mainly Tom, but my lack of knowledge on the Mandalorian stuff here is what kind of canon do we have right now that lets us know that they're being hunted? And, the first thing I ever heard of about covens and so forth was in season 1 of this. Is there other canon stuff out there now that talks about this?
I don't think so.
No, I think we have a limited peek into it.
Right.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
I think that's intentionally done, and they've delayed a lot of the ancillary material, books and stuff into next year that would normally be a source of that information. Because you think about like a typical movie release. By this point in time, we've got like a novelization, we've got a visual guide, we've got probably a tie-in book or two, a mini series.
Yeah.
I think they very specifically have done none of that, or at least have timed it to come out after season 2.
And I think that's great to have this kind of stuff unfolding here for us all to see as a television show, being more accessible for casual fans that don't read all the novels and read all the comics and see all the extra stuff.
Right.
So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. All right. So the Fight Club scene, a little bit more intentional than people might have realized. And I think more important than it comes across as first. But then let's hop back to Tatooine. We've got the landing at the spaceport, I guess in Mos Eisley, with what's her face? I don't remember the character's name. And
Pelimato.
There you go.
There you go.
And now that you've said that, I don't remember the character's name. And the pit droids and all that.
Yep.
Everybody seemed to love that scene, but I just, the humor in it just.
Well, let's take a step back before that for one second. There was some discussion on our Discord server about the sound in the music in this season so far being better than last season and so forth. The one exception for me in this was the bright, happy theme that we have for the Mandalorian when the ship is arriving on Tatooine. I thought
that was a little too.
That music was
cheery.
Jarring. It wasn't. I was like, this doesn't really fit. There's no happy, excited. Like, yes, we just solved whatever, you know.
But they wanted that because it's the reuniting of the child with the motherly figure. I guess that felt really heavy-handed to me.
Not even Luke Skywalker is happy to return to Tatooine.
No, and with good reason. The whole planet's one big ashtray.
That was my only comment about that. But I thought that scene where he lands was fantastic.
Luke Skywalker returns to Tatooine. He's all dressed in black and pissed off. I mean,
can you blame him?
You're gonna die here, you know.
Yeah.
Lou, I agree with you on the opposite end of the spectrum. The music and we'll get to this portion in a second here, but the music as the Tusken Raiders march into Mos Pelgo to get ready for the assault on the Krayt Dragon was just peak. I want that music like on loop in my house. It's amazing.
So to be clear,
the rest of the episode, the music I thought was fantastic, and that was the only one that took me out. The rest of it, to me, if music is good, it blends in. I don't really notice it. So like, those scenes were fantastic. I thought that worked really well. It's when it takes me out of the story is when I notice the music and kind of go,
But it wasn't that the music was bad. It's that the music didn't fit. I mean, the quality of the composition, to be clear, was good. Or we can agree that
100%.
It was well written.
It's a good theme.
You're just saying it didn't fit.
Work for that scene.
It didn't set the tone that you were feeling as you went into that scene. I see. To me, I didn't like that shot anyway because a lot of people like that character and like the humor, the type of humor, and we got to see R5D4 again, stuff like that. To me, I just didn't get into that scene at all, so I didn't connect with it. So the fact that it was like all light and fluffy, the whole scene was light and fluffy. So the light and fluffy music I thought fit. I didn't like it because I didn't like that scene. But I got what they were going with it. It was the break between. So you had the intense Fight Club scene.
Transition.
Yeah, this was a rest for the audience, a break. You take a breath. Everything is safe. Where do we go from here? You collect the information and you find, okay, he's going to Mos Pelgo. Is that? Let me check the show notes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the sequence with him on the ground I thought was fine. The music was fine. It was the music when the Resistance was flying over or arriving at planet when you first see him.
So it was really just that little snippet with
the little snippet there where he's flying in, and the bright brassy kind of triumphant music. I'm like, there's nothing to be triumphant about here. He's just arriving.
It simply didn't
really
fit.
That just a little. I thought I'm the one who's grumpy in the mornings. You guys are get off my lawn too.
It's like all happy music. He's flying by a dead bantha skeleton.
Yeah.
So as far as the couple of minutes spent at the spaceport, I thought it's a good moment of levity. It's a touch point of familiarity for the audience, and I think also for the Mando, and they can very quickly explain, okay, hey, here's how he got a speeder. It was, if it went on for a while, I probably would have been annoyed, but I was totally good with the amount of time that they spent with it. The actress she's funny.
Yeah. I'm nothing against her.
It can be annoying.
Yeah.
And the character is good. And I mean, Lou, before we recorded, Lou mentioned the whole so how much for him? No, just kidding. But maybe I'm serious. And that's funny. And the pit droid thing was funny.
See, I just rolled my eyes at all of it.
It moved along. I liked it.
Yeah, I do like the peak you get into Tatooine. I made this, I won't dive back into my comments too much, but she makes this comment I don't leave the walls of the city.
Right.
right? You know exactly how dangerous Tatooine has become.
Yeah, that was interesting.
If she's not.
And she's like, oh, I haven't seen any other Mandalorians here. And even Din Djarin himself at the Fight Club was talking about, you know, I've spent a lot of time on Tatooine. I've never seen any other Mandalorians. And he didn't really in season 1. It was just that little snippet there. So we learn a little bit more about him in that sentence too, that obviously he's frequented Tatooine. And now she's talking about, well, yeah, I've never seen any others here. And she's kind of supposed to be like the local knowledge resource, except she doesn't leave the walls of the city. Yeah, like you're getting little snippets of world building just in these individual sentences here and there.
Yeah.
It also begs the question, what knowledge, if any, he had of Boba Fett.
Right.
Clearly, Boba Fett had a wide rep in the galaxy.
That's the thing.
Whether it was, whether amongst true Mandalorians it was like a bit of infamy, we don't know. He doesn't seem to show any kind of recognition of the armor other than that it's Mandalorian armor.
That was a big question for me.
Like, yeah, not like, hey, rumor was you fell into a sarlacc like a dummy. He just sees it as like, hey, that's the
slipped
cultural
and tripped
property of.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like if Boba Fett was that notorious throughout the galaxy to normal people, how could a Mandalorian not know who Boba Fett was and not recognize the armor?
Yeah, I mean, unless it was the fact that he was notorious in the underworld, in the, you know, the fringe elements.
But Din Djarin is solidly within the underworld, though.
And I mean, I would also ask, like, the armor is recognizable to us because the number of Mandalorians that we've been exposed to is pretty limited. And obviously, like, he's an epic character to us. But galaxy-wide, the number of Mandalorians that exist, and if you've seen them or not, and if you know of this guy Boba Fett or not, okay, I mean, is the armor design that unique? I mean,
that's fair.
Even just looking at season 1, the number of Mandalorians we saw, yes, there were some subtle different features in the armors that we saw, but very few that stood out that like, hey, that one's Bob. It was really, even there's like a lot of similarity.
But, you know, even the bartender was like, a Mandalorian? He's like, yeah, one looks like me. He's like,
he look
okay.
like? Oh,
you know, but my first thought was you're wearing a mask, dude. I can't see what you look like. But when he says it looks like me, and he looks at, he goes, oh yeah, you mean the Marshal? So it's like he understood what that was, but he didn't know it was a Mandalorian. But and to Tim's point, I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's not that many ninjas around these days, but if somebody said a ninja, I know what it looks like.
But ninjas all look identical, and Mandalorians, unlike stormtroopers, and that's one of the reasons people like to cosplay Mandalorians sometimes as opposed to stormtroopers is because you can put some individuality.
But the armor looks similar.
Yeah. I mean, it's just paint jobs and different configuration. But there are some. So that's another thing, by the way.
But so when he says, you know, I'm looking for a Mandalorian. And the guys look at him like, okay, what's a Mandalorian? And he goes, looks like me. And he goes, oh. So he didn't know they all look alike as far as the armor silhouette, I guess you'd say.
But I'm thinking, like, I get from everybody else's perspective, but from Din Djarin's perspective, he is a Mandalorian. He knows what a Mandalorian is. And I would think that he would have heard of Boba Fett. But to that point, real quick, one other thing I just wanted to throw out here is a personal comment.
He may have heard of him, but he might not have known the armor.
True. Seeing Din Djarin and Cobb, I don't think Cobb Vanth wore the Boba Fett armor really well. But we'll come back to that. But seeing the two of them stand side by side, I realized that as a fan of the aesthetic of that armor, I really like Din Djarin a lot more than Boba Fett. Like just the shoulder pauldrons, the look of the armor. And I've always liked Jango, his armor better than Boba's armor anyway. And yeah, Din Djarin is definitely the better.
I came dressed, for those that are watching this, in my Cobb Vanth cosplay. I've got exactly what I need, minus
the helmet. Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, the next celebration, there's going to be all kinds of Cobb Vanth cosplay because I mean, just throw some crap on and put a helmet and a chest plate on, and you're done.
Every
you know.
Boba Fett cosplayer instantly got a second costume, so long as they had a red sweatshirt, and
Right,
some
and a little
sweatpants
red
there.
scarf.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, I don't have to finish building my armor now. Thank you. I don't need the leg plates. I can just throw on some jeans
that was the
and some
thing.
tennis
You know, it's
shoes.
like
And
I
talk
talked
about
to-
something that's going to be way more comfortable than the Mud Trooper, Lou. I mean, because again, there is zero armor. I think there was one knee pad.
Was there?
Cobb
I don't know
had.
that there was.
Yeah, I think there was one knee pad. That was
Was
it.
there anything below the waist?
I think it was when one time they did a zoom out and I looked to see like what was down there because of course in the Sandcrawler we didn't see any leg armor or anything, and just kind of in quick flashes, and then it kind of like hit my mind that hey, he doesn't have the full actual set of armor,
Right.
But then also thinking back to season 1, the end of the episode with Ming Na in it. And if that was Boba Fett, he still had some of his armor.
Right. And that's what I'm thinking we're going to see. He's got part of it, but not all of it.
Yeah.
The last comment that I'll have on recognition would be, it would make sense for Tim's point about him knowing the name but not the armor. It would also make sense if Boba Fett had some sort of like infamy or notoriety as an imposter amongst the Mandalorian community or some part of it, as a guy that's running around in the armor. But given the trade in Beskar, he can't be the only Joe Schmo in the galaxy running around wearing armor like that.
No, we could have Jodo Cast.
However, yeah, that was the exact
guys.
point that I was thinking of. Just an imposter running around being a dummy, and if Din was driven to ground, as depending on the timing of the genocide there, he has every reason to not know who Boba Fett is because he's been sort of holed up and just trying to survive.
I have a trivia question for Tom. But Tom, before you answer it, Lou and Tim get to chime in because I want to see if they know. In Legends, what other major character posed as a Mandalorian? Yes or no? Do you know the answer, Tom?
If it's not the one name that I'm thinking of, then I don't know.
Okay. Major character posing as a Mandalorian. Now, and I don't mean Jodo Cast, because Jodo Cast at one point was posing as Boba Fett to try to get commissions and stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll give you a further hint, and Tom, now you'll know whether or not you got the right one. This person was in fact not posing as Boba Fett. He was posing intentionally as Jodo Cast, posing as Boba Fett.
Oh, yeah, I remember the story. I don't remember who that was though.
Yeah.
Tom.
I am self-professed that my knowledge of current canon far outstrips my my knowledge
is very
of Legends,
fair.
so I do not. I confess I do not
Grand
know.
Admiral Thrawn. I'm very disappointed in our resident Thrawn fan
Really?
over here that you didn't know
I
that.
know.
Brilliant story.
Wow,
So
okay.
it was in.
I don't remember that.
So there were some novels, Tales of the New Republic, Tales of the Empire, and Tales from Jabba's Palace, and I think Tales of the Bounty Hunters. And they were short stories. And there was a, after I think the first one that came out, they started having these 4-part short stories co-written between Timothy Zahn and Mike Stackpole. And one would do parts 1 and 4, and the other would do parts 2 and 3. And one of those short stories series at the beginning of one of those books was Thrawn. I forget who Thrawn was trying to hunt down, but he decided to go undercover posing not as Boba Fett, but posing as Jodo Cast, trying to get a bounty hunting commission that Jodo Cast used to do, posing as Boba Fett. And there was this whole thing. Yeah. You should go back and hunt it down. It was a good story.
Was into cosplay. That's pretty awesome.
Yes. I mean, you could get the Jodo Cast version of the Boba Fett armor and then do the blue makeup and everything and be a chiss.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. And just walk around with the helmet under your arm and
Yeah,
The people
so,
who
good stuff.
know will know.
So back to our episode.
Yes. Come on, as trivia goes, that people are going to find that one interesting.
The thing I thought was great about that interaction between them in that cantina was when, he's like, let's have a drink. And at first I'm thinking to myself, how do you guys drink? It's like you guys, sip underneath the
there's
the
a
mask,
straw
and
that
then
goes up
he
under
pulls it
the
off. But then there's the reaction of Din just to stand there. It's like he just freezes
Right.
immediately, like, what the?
He's like, nope.
He's like, and then he's like,
You
okay,
heathen.
no. Yeah, take it off.
Yeah.
I'm taking that back.
Hey, real quick, shout out to everybody in the chat room. We're figuring it's a Saturday morning, early on Halloween. Nobody's actually going to show up for that. I tell you what, I love a lot of podcasters and YouTubers out there. I'm not rolling out of bed at Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning to watch anybody. But we've actually got a full chat room here. We've got Thilo in Germany is able to actually tune in and watch us for once. That's awesome. We've got Josh in there, Fetmatic. I think some others I might be missing here. Our other Tom was here as well. So
My doppelganger.
Doppelganger. Yeah. So hi to everybody in the chat room. Thanks for showing up. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Good morning.
Yeah. So moving along, I know we're running a little long here and we're only like halfway through the episode. Oh, and also, isn't it? Somebody says, Weequay, get us some drinks. Isn't that kind of racist? That's like walking into a bar, like a local bar that you go to all the time. Keep in mind, in a town with like 10 buildings. And I don't know, like just pick a race, like a Asian. Hey, Asian, get me a drink. Like that's just what? Isn't that like just the worst?
They helped each other survive.
Let's not use that for our show title, okay?
Well, no, but like I'm saying, doesn't the Weequay have a name? Like, how do you just narrow him down to a race like that and be so?
Or at least, hey bartender, hey barkeep.
Even that would be okay.
I didn't think about that, but I had a similar experience watching this with my wife. We were watching last night. She called them sand people. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of racist.
Yeah.
They have a, and she's and my wife is very, politically correct, and she's like, oh my god, really? Oh my god,
are you serious?
I just called them. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wow, Tusken Raiders. Do you know why they're called Tusken Raiders?
I do not.
Because they raided Fort Tusken.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of Tatooine. As much as I hate Tatooine, that crashed ship in the middle of Mos Eisley. Tom, you know what the name of it is?
I do.
Tim? Lou?
I do
Tom,
not.
go ahead.
No.
The
Dowager Queen. Yep. Just because I hate Tatooine doesn't mean I don't know my stuff. All right. I mean, I'm no Tom, but I hold up okay. Anyway, so that Weequay thing. I heard it. I'm like, ugh. Oh, dude, it's 2020. Come on.
Yeah.
Not in Star Wars. It's not.
And then he stuck his fingers in the shot glass.
Look, it's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's true.
In a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, it's not near here.
Different.
Okay, so looking over the notes here, just let's talk about Cobb Vanth in general. Like, to me, I read the Aftermath trilogy, and I don't know. So I got to be fair. I'm trying to be introspective here. I think that what I didn't like about Cobb Vanth at the time was it kind of like broke 30 years of Legends for me, and reading all of these novels and keeping up with everything. And it's like Boba Fett, even George Lucas himself said Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc pit. And right out of the gate, somebody else took his armor. It's like, wait, what? No, like do something with all that. And keep in mind, when Aftermath came out, we still didn't know what the state of Mandalorians in general were going to be. So that was kind of the Mandalorian that we had sitting around. And I guess maybe I was just really too bitter toward Cobb Vanth at the time. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't fair, but I always kind of saw his character as this street punk, not a street punk, but like this just idiot guy who found some armor and decided to make a name for himself. Like it, I didn't like the guy. And then in this episode, to me, he felt different than what I saw his portrayal as in the Aftermath trilogy. But
nobody
agrees with that
him here. I mean, you kind of sympathize with the character. He still does come across as a bit of an opportunist, but at least he's altruistic about it. Like he wanted to go help take care of his settlement. and his people. And you know, and it was, I mean, the amazing thing is that, you know, suddenly putting the armor on made him an awesome fighter.
Yeah, I thought about
I
that
guess,
too.
which was a little like, I don't, maybe Boba Fett's armor is imbibed with some like force awesomeness that makes you a really good fighter. I don't know. But I mean, it's fine. It's fine. I'm totally fine with that. And you know, it was a cool little flashback that they put in there. So yeah.
How easy is
'cause
it?
they could have left his backstory just, hey, go read the book. But to get that, you know, it in visual form, and not even him just like saying it without a flashback like that. I agree. That was really cool. I was disappointed because in the book, and maybe we'll see him, I don't know, he links up with Malakili, the Rancor keeper from Jabba's palace, and he's got like a baby hut that he's having Malakili help raise and stuff. And, you know, maybe we'll see him later, but
I gotta say, and you know, I've said this before on Echo Base, that I know the Aftermath books caught an awful lot of flack when they first came out. I think mostly for the writing style and some for the content. I was fine with the writing style. I was good with the content. I liked the stories that were in there. They were great. At this point, because I mean, Aftermath was supposed to be like this launching point for, you know, this next generation of Star Wars and for the sequels and all that. And it didn't. It fell very, very flat in the end. And I was willing to give it a chance right up until Episode 9 came out, and there was really nothing there. And I kind of regard Aftermath as Legends at this point. There's just nothing really substantial, that came out of it.
I actually liked the new characters eventually. I didn't care that much in the first novel, but by the second and third, I liked the other characters, you know, Snap Wexley and Mr. Bones and all that.
Oh, sure. So did I. Yeah.
I didn't, but I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum, the fact that we were expecting something that really filled in a lot of blanks and it didn't. Those little snippets throughout, though, the little flashbacks, just didn't do it for me.
Yeah, for me, the story didn't stick with me. You know, it's like I got done with it. I'm like, okay, but I couldn't recount the tales of what was told in those three books.
That's probably also our own fault in the sense that, well, I don't know, fault's probably not the right word, but I think we weren't in the headspace that we needed to be for those books, because I know at least you and I, because we discussed this a lot on shows, we were looking for something else. We read through something that we didn't really want to be reading. We wanted to be reading something entirely different and never got it.
Yeah, it was more of a chore.
Right. So I think there's a lot of that. But so
and I think the other piece that went along with it, at least for me, is the lack of connectivity. And we're starting to see, I think this episode helps make that trilogy a little more meaningful.
It does.
We get some more of that in Squadrons with the Starhawks and stuff. But you know, in retrospect, it still feels like those books are on an island. Like they're just not.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger problem than that's not Chuck Wendig or his writing or anything like that. That's a bigger story problem. But I do think there was a weight of expectations in drawing this back to the Mandalorian about based on our experiences in Legends stories that were never going to be fulfilled. And I think in particular, Cobb Vanth's story was like high grit sandpaper for folks that had this image, as Eric mentioned, of what happened to Boba Fett. And then the mere fact that Cobb Vanth exists and he found and started wearing Boba Fett's armor, to a lot of people seemed to imply Boba Fett's dead. And that, you know, that tiny aside in the first Aftermath book left a bad taste in folks' mouth, because they're like, how dare you come in and change this major thing.
Right.
Now we're starting to see, well, maybe 5 years ago we didn't know the full picture. But, you know, it's to me, it's a mixture of those two things: expectations being shifted from out from under us, and then, you know, for whatever reason, an overall lack of connectivity to the bigger Star Wars story.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like you said, this starts to bring that around nicely. So moving along, and I think we're already at the hour point, and we're like halfway through the episode. worth of content here, though. A lot of I think the second half of the episode is just more the action scenes and kind of the setup for the battle and all that.
A little later on story.
Anybody Vance Speeder, the pod racing engine with the sidecar piloting seat? I've seen a lot of talk in Discord.
Like a little radon ulcer.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people complain about this, or like some like it, some hate it. I'm like,
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
It's a cool throwback. It's very Tatooine-ish.
It is.
I mean, people scrounge and repurpose things and rebuild things, and that was spot on. And it looks just like one of Anakin's engines.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen? Presumably the arena there and where the Boonta Eve pod race happened is still around, but not in use. And scavengers, as Jabba died, went in and took whatever they could. It's very reminiscent of Rey's speeder and on Jakku. Just doing exactly what Tim said, finding whatever they can and repurposing it, not knowing the history of it.
It made sense to me.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, Cobb Vanth still looks horrible in that armor. I can't get over that. How easy is it for you to get missiles for one of these backpacks, by the way?
I was wondering.
You're out in the middle of nowhere. It shows him using one in the flashback, and then he's got another one. It's like, what do you have, like 30 of them sitting around in your house or something? Or like,
he doesn't have the knee pads, but he's got multiple.
He's got multiple. You just run down to your local Walmart and pick up some more when you run out. Ugh. Okay, so the crate dragon. We finally get to see a crate dragon. They do kind of the Dune sandworm thing. I mean, it's hard not to make Dune comparisons with Tatooine in general.
Yeah.
There's a lot of complaints about that with Star Wars, the spice running and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not a big Dune fan. That's not really my wheelhouse. So we've got the big sandworm / dragon thing. And, it's Star Wars, so we have to be outrageously forgiving with the physics here. You've got the sandworm coming into the town, and you see one of the evaporator things just kind of sink into the ground. But then later on, like a little barrel gets knocked over. You go put the barrel back, and the buildings are okay. Those don't fall under or anything. And I'm thinking, what are these buildings built on? And then, you got him digging through the sand, and then he basically goes up through a rock cliff later in the battle.
Yeah.
And then
pops out of it. Yeah.
So, it's Star Wars. You have to kind of throw the physics away. I get it.
Yeah.
Crate Dragon, we like it. We don't like it. Thoughts?
It's very kaiju-esque. It was like a creature out of Pacific Rim, which was, to me, it was awesome. I thought it was
interesting design.
Not what I expected. I immediately called back to the skeleton you see C-3PO walk by in A New Hope, and I said they've done this right. There's little reference material. I suppose. I think in Knights of the Old Republic or one of the old video games, I think you actually fight a crate dragon.
People have said that den area looks like from Knights of the Old Republic, which I have not ever finished that game. By the way, it's on sale right now for iOS, $4.99, half off. But yeah, I guess
it looks just like
in that game you do fight a crate dragon. I don't know if it's similar. I haven't seen any pictures of it or anything, and of course KOTOR isn't canon.
So I like it. I appreciate that we still never got to see the whole thing. I think that was cool, and that just kind of alluded to the size of it, that it was still, there was still part of it in the sand. The whole traveling through sand thing. I mean, you do kind of think about the physics of like liquefaction of sand and that kind of stuff. And you just kind of have to go with it in the universe.
And then
I think it was cool. I love that, like, hey, we tried to kill it, that didn't work. We tried to kill it again.
I like that.
Still didn't.
You've got the old dragon stereotype of you've got to hit that soft spot in the belly and all that, and it's like, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Thilo in the chat room, by the way, points out the design, at least for the head of it, goes back to the old Macquarie design. So. Yeah, so that's a nice.
So for me, the dragon, two things. I like my dragons to fly, but you don't get what you want. But I would have liked to at least seen a front claw or an arm. To me, without that, it was just a snake, and I'm like, It's not really a
Interesting.
snake. It's a dragon. I want to see the front 4 claws at least. If you don't see the whole body, I'm fine with that. And I think it was great showing just the head and the neck and how big it was. But
so you had to assume that there were like maybe little appendages
flippers.
like further down the torso or something, because you do get the points where it comes out and then it retracts backward too. And snakes can't really do that, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
they've got to sidle. They've got to move the whole body. But but yeah, it just, to me, that design seemed more like a snake, like a sandworm, like a, either Beetlejuice as a sandworm or Dune sandworms. But
Say his name
didn't
3 times.
speak-
Great dragon. Great dragon. Great dragon.
I won't. It didn't speak dragon to me, but it was still awesome. I
Okay.
mean, the character, the character that it created, everything from the way it moved, the way it bit through sand, the way it vomited the acid.
They never really showed like the effects of
They
the
did if you looked at
vomit.
Vaporized.
they
It was
showed it, but
blurry.
not very much, which I thought was great.
Yeah, because
you
my
don't wanna
son's going to
have-
watch this.
Exactly. You don't want kids to be like, oh my
It's
god.
enough
but
that you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, it's the implication is
if you paid
very clear.
attention, you saw the people being disintegrated, but you didn't really see it graphically.
Yeah.
See, it must have happened really fast, because even watching it twice, like I didn't see it. I'm going to have to like slow mo it or something. And I certainly wasn't expecting anything graphic with it, but it was like, it got to the point where I'm thinking, all right, so these guys just got like puked on? Is that what happened? Like,
It was pretty clear to
it's
me what
like-
was happening.
he's the crate dragon is fighting them by grossing them
Yeah.
out. Like,
Hey, I'd
and
run.
then Din comes out at the end with the slime
Yes.
on him. I'm like, isn't that the
Yes.
same
So,
stuff?
Let's talk
Okay.
about that. So keep in mind that, so the way I looked at it, if you look at like a snake venom, for example,
right, it comes from a different place.
it's not their
than stomach.
saliva.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no indication that this dragon's saliva is acidic. It's that he belches this
Right,
stuff
right.
forward, or it comes out of some sort of a sac or a gland or something
It's
like
not
that.
like a xenomorph in Aliens.
Right. So therefore,
Right.
when he swallows,
I love podcasting with Tom.
right? So when he swallows Din Djarin, it doesn't mean that he's covered in the acid.
Right.
So when
Yeah.
he flies out,
I mean, somewhere it was supposed to be like a pre-digestive acid stuff that's supposed to help him eat, but
maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I'm okay with it.
What I
not-
thought was interesting, you talk about not getting to
Have
see
you
the whole
ever tried
body.
digesting a
If you
bantha?
look at the new canon for what a sarlacc looks like under the sand, and I think the first glimpse I got of this is when they were going through Galaxy's Edge and all the Batu stuff in one of the stores. One of the items that are decorative that you can't buy, but it's like an item in one of the antiquity stores or something like that. There's like this miniature replica of a sarlacc, and it shows the opening and like the sarlacc pit at the top, and then it shows the full body of the sarlacc underneath.
Which is
It's
massive.
massive.
They've got like a little baby sarlacc.
Yeah. Try raising that thing. But the idea that a crate dragon could have eaten a sarlacc, like, that's kind of impressive.
Well, you see Cobb Vanth's reaction. He's like,
Right.
Yeah.
"What? How? Yeah."
Ever heard of an abandoned sarlacc pit?
Not if you eat the sarlacc.
Right.
Like, oh no.
I love another great callback from the first season was Din's ability to communicate with the Tusken Raiders, and obviously that helps move the story along really well. It's a really cool alliance, and someone in Discord yesterday pointed out that like we got to see a completely different side of the Tusken Raiders, because they were like this like crazy enemy from the original trilogy. And then we even kind of saw a little bit of that in the prequels when they were, sniping the Boonta Eve race. And then in episode 3 where Anakin goes and kills them. And so, I mean, it all kind of built. And in this, we see a completely different view of them, that they are, they are a civilized-ish civilization. And and I also love the language of it, where it's kind of this part sign language, part verbal language, and
Yeah.
they did a really neat, although brief, dive into kind of their culture. I thought it was really cool. And I love that when they defeated the Krayt Dragon, they held their gaffy sticks and blasters up over their head, and did this on repeat, just as if the tape was rewinding and going forward again.
Yeah, and I love them riding single file into Pelgo to hide their numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I will now watch A New Hope, and when the moment when Obi-Wan makes the Krayt Dragon call, exactly why they throw all the stuff down and run away immediately.
Right.
But
I will say
the poor bastards that go to the front of that cave and
Tusken
they call for him
poop.
and they turn and run.
They can book it. It's like Usain Bolt down there. I mean,
oh, that was great.
So another piece of Legends trivia, there was actually a Tusken who became a Jedi in one of the comic series. Yeah. Another throwback too, the Krayt Dragon Pearl. I've seen some questions about that. That's actually a thing in Legends. They were like super crazy expensive. Like that was one of the most high priced, whatever you want to call it, artifacts or treasures or something that you could get in the Star Wars galaxy was a Krayt Dragon Pearl. So what happened is they would have these stones or whatever that they would use to kind of help break down stuff in their stomach and digest it. And other animals in real life do this, but it would get beaten around over time to the point where it'd get polished down into this like pearl substance. And I guess there was one Jedi had part of his lightsaber hilt was built out of this. And I guess you could take it and use it in lightsabers to do something about like affecting the color of the blade or something. There's a whole Legends thing, and I don't think there's really much in current canon about Krayt Dragon Pearls, but the Krayt Dragon Pearl is actually a thing that's been around in Star Wars lore for a long time. So the fact that they actually showed that at the end, I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, I forgot about those. That's cool. And like for a Tusken, that was like much in the way that Darksaber represents things for Mandalore in Tusken culture, that was like the ultimate icon of bravery.
Yeah.
So that was a nice throwback too, I think.
Yeah, I like that. I
don't know if this is a canon fact, but I love clone troopers, and if it is canon, I'd have to take a look. Commander Bly, so the clone commander that kills Aayla Secura on Felucia, his DC-17 pistols, his hand blasters, the handles are made of Krayt Dragon Pearl, sort of like very, very much like Patton with his pearl grip pistols or pistol.
Yeah, they got that clone trooper's name from my last name, right?
Pearl was a rumor. They're actually ivory.
Right. All right. We should probably start wrapping it up. Anything else? Let's go ahead and cover anything else we want to cover about this episode. Anything else that stands out to you guys? By the way, the Fets have really crappy jetpacks. Can we just...
They do. I love that moment though, where he hits the jetpack and it malfunctions, and then
like he knew to hit it
very quickly to. Yeah, Vanth is very quick to say like, hey, you tell them I didn't break that.
Yeah, right. That was cute.
I like Fett clearly was a standout moment. A lot of folks have sort of fixated on that. I like that whatever his time spent in the Sarlacc was, it clearly digested his eyebrows and whatever hair he had.
Yeah,
he
so
didn't escape completely unscathed.
Tamara
like
Morrison.
The fact that he clearly has probably gotten into some skirmishes with Tusken Raiders, because the blaster on his back was a Tusken blaster, and he also had a gaffy stick. So he's still a badass out there.
Or maybe he befriended them and got those.
Maybe.
We don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. But that's an interesting foreshadowing. We had a little bit of and the fact that we've now got 2 points of foreshadowing about Boba Fett kind of leads me to believe that it's going to be more than just kind of a cameo sort of thing. Like it's going to be a bigger point further in the season. And I mean, honestly, if you bring Boba Fett into this show, you kind of have to make it a big deal. Like you have to invest in that moment because the fans are going to be invested in the moment. And now that you've had two different points where you foreshadow it at the end of an episode like that, like you've really got to come heavy and show up with your A game with a Boba Fett episode. So I'm really curious who's going to be doing that episode.
This made me flashback to the Clone Wars. What was it, season 3 or season 4, when Maul returned? It's like a character we just assumed a particular fate for, and now all of a sudden he's back in our lives.
Right.
And I think that's a really cool moment in time.
I think that there's a lot of trash talk about Boba Fett, and I get it. I've always been more of a fan of the concept of Mandalorians than I have Boba Fett himself. And growing up, I mean, for the vast majority of the first 30 years of Star Wars fandom, Boba Fett was the Mandalorian. And so I'd always been a Boba Fett fan, more so because of what he represents and the lore in the expanded universe and stuff. Not so much the films per se, other than, as a kid, that was still, the whole Clint Eastwood, silent, strong type walking in, talking crap to Darth Vader in front of everybody else. Like that whole thing was really cool. But now, he's been around so long and all the mystique and mystery's been drained of the character. And I get that people don't really care for him that much. And I'm much more a fan of Din Djarin than I am Boba Fett at this point. But I'm hoping that if they bring him into this show, maybe they can do something to redeem people's perspective a little bit of Boba Fett. I'm hoping. And I also love that they're bringing Tamara Morrison in. I
think it's a great move.
Of all of the people I've met through Star Wars fandom, as far as actors from any of the series, I've got a lot of respect for Tem as a person, and I love that he's going to continue to be involved in Star Wars, and so I'm really excited about that. But I don't think we're going to find out anything next episode, so I don't know. I don't have any information on the next episode, but I imagine it's going to be. I think we're probably going to get that water world thing in either episode 2 or 3. That's my guess.
I demand Moff Gideon make an appearance immediately.
We've got to get some backstory on him. If he's going to be the big bad for this season, they need to jump in a little bit early and fill in a little bit of this backstory at some point. I know that you don't open with that necessarily, I guess. I thought they were going to, but maybe that's not the right way to do it. But now we need a little bit of that going forward before we get too far into the end.
I'm not sure we need much backstory, really.
Maybe not backstory,
just
but
go this for, bring him up to speed now, what he's
some
after.
Context.
Why does he have the only backstory I want on him is why he has the Darksaber.
And I don't think we're going to get flashbacks for that. I think that's going to be, so they have to educate the viewers about the Darksaber.
Right.
They can't just dump it in. Not all of the viewers have seen Rebels. Not all the viewers have seen Clone Wars. So they have to educate the viewer either through exposition or something. And I think that's going to be more mid-season. But we need some context for who Gideon is, why he's doing what he's doing, what kind of resources he has available. Why do we see him as a threat other than the fact that he can shoot up a cantina?
Yeah.
Hell, anybody can shoot up a cantina.
I think one thing here that they realized after how popular the first season was, that they're also going to play a long game with this. So I think that there's certain things like with Gideon that they're not going to immediately resolve. And I mean, so long as they keep putting some breadcrumbs in there, I think that's good. But, also consider the fact that at this point, Din and the child, they got away from him. So he doesn't really have any issue, I don't think, with Gideon at this point until Gideon happens to resurface, which we know is going to happen.
Right.
And some people will say, well, hey, this episode or an episode somewhere doesn't really advance the story much. And I think that, again, there's a lot of elements in these stories. First of all, we can't think of these as Star Wars movies. So we have to kind of change our perspective a little bit. Yep. Yes, a movie, in your 2.5 hours, you need to keep it moving, and every bit has to be relevant. In a series like this, no, not every bit needs to fully contribute to the story.
True.
It's contributing to context. You're just getting some fun adventures out of it, that kind of thing. The other side is that there are connections that they're making and context that they're providing that may be supporting something that's going to happen later in the season, or maybe even in another season. I mean, look at the things that they dropped in the first season that maybe weren't so relevant. Like, oh, hey, it's cool that he can talk to Tusken Raiders. Well, wow, that became wildly relevant in this episode,
right,
in the second season.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of little connections that they're going to make. The stuff, with from the Ming-Na episode, the stuff from the prison ship episode that you mentioned earlier, Eric. All these things are going to come back to us maybe sometime in this season, maybe sometime in season 3, which we know that they've confirmed. So we need to look at the big picture of this, because Filoni and Favreau are clearly playing the long game on this.
Yep.
And I think that's going to be kind of a recurring theme through all of season 2. We've got some big questions and some big things that we expect to see. I think it's really important that we remember we're getting 8 episodes. This one, including the recap and the credits, was 54 minutes, but most are not going to be. Shoot for more like a half hour. And I think you're right. I think we need to understand that we need to be patient. There is going to be a season 3, and some of our questions are not going to be answered until season 3. So, and we are not going to get all of the answers that we want in season 2. We're going to get some things answered and some things will not be yet. So, I don't think we're going to get.
And keep in mind, if they answer all the questions, the story's over.
Well,
we don't want that either.
You could argue that they're going to ask new questions, but I don't think. So I predict that at the end, and we need to wrap this up, so we should probably save some speculation for future episodes too. But I think that at the end of season 2, we're going to end up with a good lead on where to go to get the child reunited. But I think that this season is really going to be about the question that was introduced in the Fight Club: where can I find more Mandalorians? I think really it's going to be him finding other people who can help figure out where he needs to go from there. And I think that's going to be the end of the season, is we will have some guidance on the path to get the child back to his people. And I think season 3 will be more about pursuing that leg of the quest. And then the end of that will be the reuniting of him with the people and learning more about their. And I mean, the kid could stay with Din Djarin forever, but I think we're not going to see that piece of the puzzle answered until the end of season 3. I think season 2 is really about this other aspect of things, the Boba Fett thing, and I think Sabine and Ahsoka. Those are going to be the big things for this season. I think.
And I don't think those are necessarily going to be one-offs either. I think that we're going to have, some perpetuity through these things.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up this episode of The Outer Rim. Thank you for tuning in. Everybody in the chat room, thank you for waking up on a Saturday morning. And the first thing out of your heads is, hey, I should go listen to you guys, because these 3 guys right here, if I didn't have a show to do, I'd still be in bed. You guys couldn't get me out of bed right now. So
not even to talk the Mandalorian.
Not even to talk, dude. Listen, I get so little sleep that I need whatever I can get. But thank you to you guys out there for tuning in. We really appreciate it. For those who are not listening to this live, we plan to do this most Saturday mornings around 8 a.m. Eastern, which I think is GMT -5. I have to check to see how that changes with daylight saving time. I don't. It
goes to 4. I think.
No. I thought 5 is that maybe it's 6 during daylight saving time and 5 otherwise. I don't know that we dropped to 4. I'll look it up. Or if somebody out there knows, then please tell me. I know we have some listeners over in the UK, and they're probably more experts on this than we are. But anyway, Saturday mornings around 8 a.m. Eastern is the tentative time for recording this. About once a month, we're going to have to do a Friday night instead. And we're going to continue bringing you
They'll
coverage.
also be shorter episodes.
Yep. I mean, this is the premiere of season 2, so obviously we had a lot more to talk about this episode. They will be shorter episodes going forward, definitely. But be sure to check us out on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/randomchatter or randomchatter.com/YouTube. Either one, just make sure that when you get here, you click that subscribe button. And if you like the video, you click the like button too. There's also a little icon with the bell, which for you older people out there, Lou, if you click on that, I know you guys aren't up on all of this social media, YouTube-y kind of stuff, so I'm explaining it to you guys, okay? You click on that and you get notifications when we go live and when we have new episodes posted, so be sure to do that. And then, of course, you can always get the audio at randomchatter.com and anywhere you normally get podcasts from. And we kept mentioning Discord throughout the episode. We have a Discord community, lots of great people there. In fact, some of them are in the chat room right now. And we would love for you to join that community to interact with us and one another and to discuss The Mandalorian. So randomchatter.com/Discord. We do have a separate section for Mandalorian spoilers, which is part of our Star Wars collection of channels. That is one of the things that we have set up for Patreon donors is kind of a thank you for helping support the network. Even just $1 a month. We have a whole section of Discord that we've opened up as kind of a more topical, organized section with lots of different great conversations going there. So randomchatter.com/Patreon for more information on that. And that's it. So be sure to join us in Discord. We will see you again next week. Check out the other videos here on our YouTube channel. And until then, take care and may the Force be with you.